and we shall go into part 2. For part 2, I shall be talking about the biblical examples so that you will know that this did not just begin here. It has is a situation that many of our patriarchs in the Bible experienced. So if you look at Jesus himself, let's start with Jesus. If you look at Matthew, if you look at Matthew 23, let's look at verse 1 to 4 quickly. Then Jesus said to the crowd and to his disciples, the teachers of religious law and the Pharisees are the official interpreters of the law of Moses. So they are the one in charge. They are the princes. They are the head, like the government, like the one they represent power. 3. So practice and obey whatever they tell you, but don't follow their examples, for they don't practice what they teach. 4. They crush people with unbearable religious demands. So we can call that oppression. They crush people with unbearable burdens or unbearable religious burdens, and never lift a finger to ease the burden. To ease the burden. But they want everyone to fulfill all these religious laws without even helping them. Can you see? Jesus is saying, don't follow what they say, but don't follow their examples, because they are oppressing God's people with unbearable religious laws. Look at 5. Everything they do is for show. On their arms, they wear extra wide prayer boxes with scriptures verses inside, and they wear robes with extra long tassels. And they love to sit at the high table at banquets. So it began to reveal their hypocrisy. If you look at 23, so that it doesn't take time. What sorrow awaits you, teachers of religious law, and you Pharisees, hypocrites, for you are careful to tithe even the tiniest income from your herb garden, but you ignore the most aspect of the law. You are tithing is good to you. It's easy. You want to tithe even the tiniest from what you make, but you ignore the most important aspect of the law. This is Jesus speaking, which is what? Justice, mercy, and faith. You should tithe. Jesus confirmed that. You should tithe, yes, but do not neglect the most important things. Jesus emphasizing tithing is good, but it's not the most important thing. What is the most important thing? Justice, mercy, and faith. So Jesus condemning the acts of the religious law here. If you could say it in the current age, you will say that Jesus was rebellious. Jesus was rebellious because he was speaking truth to power. He was speaking truth to power. He was exposing the hearts of the wicked ones in power and encouraging and inspiring all others to not follow their footsteps, revealing the path to life, light. He was acting as a light to the people, being deceived by the religious leaders. So it's good to tithe, but don't forget the most important aspect of the law, which is justice, fairness, mercy, and faith. Jesus was rebellious. But his rebellion was what? Holy and righteous. Can you understand? Daniel, Shadrach, Abednego, Meshach, and Abednego too, they were rebellious. If you look at Daniel 3, 8 to 13, they were rebellious. Read that. They said, bow to this beast, and they did not. And the governors and others were so angry, and the leaders there were so angry, and they went to report to the governor to cast them into the lake of fire. We all know the story. They were rebellious. They did not. Said even if our God doesn't help us, we will not bow to this your God. That was holy rebellion. Moses, in Exodus 9, 1 to 3, we all know what happened. Exodus 9, 1 to 3. Go back to Pharaoh. The Lord commanded Moses, tell him, this is what the Lord, the God of the Hebrews says, let my people go so they can worship me. If you continue to hold them and refuse to let them go, the hand of the Lord will strike all your livestock. Let them go and what? Worship me. But Pharaoh didn't want that because he wanted the Israelites to work for him, to serve him. He was acting as a God, the small letter G. Why God is saying, let my people come worship me. Can you see that? So Moses was acting according to the Spirit of God. He was acting as an activist. Holy rebellion. Telling the king, who is equivalent to the president of today, that let these people go. Demanding that they go. Demanding that they go. Can you see? It was rebellion again because the words of the king then is the law. So Moses was literally disobeying the law by challenging the king. By challenging the king. We can call it treason today. You can call that treason today, isn't it? So Mordecai and Haman. Haman, let's quickly look at that. Esther 3, 1 to 6. Haman and Mordecai. Soon, sometime later, King Xerxes, sorry for my pronunciation, promoted Haman, son of Hammedatha, the Haggagite, over all the other nobles, making him the most powerful official in the empire. Verse 2, all the king's officials would bow down before Haman to show him respect whenever he passed by. For so the king had commanded. But Mordecai refused to bow down or show him respect. Then the palace officials at the king's gate asked Mordecai, why are you disobeying the king's command? They spoke to him day after day, but still he refused to comply with the order. So they spoke to Haman about this to see if he would tolerate Mordecai's conduct, since Mordecai had told them he was a Jew. 5. When Haman saw that Mordecai would not bow or show him respect, he was filled with rage. He had learned of Mordecai's nationality, so he decided it was not enough to lay hands on Mordecai alone. He looked for a way to destroy all the Jews throughout the entire empire of Xerxes. So he was demanding. Of course, he should respect him, but he was demanding you bow to him. He was acting like a god. It's not just physically bow, it's also succumb your will and everything. So worshiping is not just demanding you bow physically, it's also succumbing your will, your intellect, your ideas, your wisdom to mine. But Mordecai said no. We all know how the story ended. Mordecai plotted to kill the Jews and all that, including Mordecai. Haman plotted to kill the Jews and Mordecai himself. But eventually, what this trap is set for Haman was the same trap, the same pole that he was hung on. The God of the Jews, the God of Mordecai, fought for him. It can be rebellious, but it's not just that. It's also what you are demanding. Do you demand people to just worship you instead of God? Do you want to be God in people's lives? I hope not to be God in your life. If I give that impression, I'm sorry. I will never, no matter what God has used me for your life or will use me for, I don't ever want to be God in your life. All glory to God. I am just a vessel. He can crush me tomorrow and raise someone else to do his work. I will never take the place of God in anybody's life. I hope not to. or else I'm asking for destruction. The angel of the Lord in Revelations 19:10 says, do not worship me, worship God. John, he said, then I fell down at his feet to worship him. But he said, no, don't worship him. I am a servant of God, just like you and your brothers and sisters who testify about their faith in Jesus. Worship only God. For the essence of prophecy is to give a clear witness for Jesus. For the prophecy is a testimony to Jesus. The spirit of prophecy is to Jesus, right? So the angel was even rebuking John here. Don't bow. Don't bow. Some people want to be God in your life. Some situations want to turn themselves to be God. And this is what the Spirit of God the Spirit of God will raise holy rebellion in you, politely, respectfully, but rebuking that oppression, injustice, and that demand. No, I will only worship Yahweh. I will only worship the Lord God Almighty. I remember David and Goliath also. You can read 1 Samuel 17:26 and also 41 to 47. How he challenged Goliath and saying, who are you, these uncircumcised Philistines? How dare you talk like this against the Lord Most High? He was rebelling against the boasting and the demand of worship by Goliath. That was holy rebellion. That was holy rebellion. At one stage of our life, at least once in our lifetime, we will go through this experience. And what will you choose? Will you rebel according to the Spirit of God, or you will bow down and worship the devil or the small god? Saul, the same thing against the Ammonites. 1 Samuel 11, 1 to 15. If you look at verse 6 very well, it says, and the Spirit of the Lord came powerfully upon Saul, and he became angry. The Spirit of the Lord came powerfully. 1 Samuel 11 to 15. If you look at verse 6. 1 second, please. Yeah. If you look at verse 6, it says, then the Spirit of God came powerfully upon Saul, and he became very angry because the Ammonites were demanding they pluck the eyes of the Jews, of those people, just to oppress them, just as a sign of covenant. And the Spirit of the Lord came powerfully upon Saul, and he was angry. What kind of demand is that? And he raised an army to go fight for those oppressed people, to fight against the Ammonites. We all know what happened. He won. He won. I remember on my way coming when I was traveling to America too. I got to a point that it was either I kept working where I was and making the comfortable income and the comfortable income I was making then, and also the environment. I was getting free food, free accommodation. It looked good. Making money, at least the highest I've ever made in my life at that time. So it's either I succumb to the God of comfort zone there, or I leave that and go after the purpose of God and the will of God that might eventually make life easier for my unborn generation or break generational curses. Do you understand? So there was this demand. Either choose this or this. I I left the comfort zone. I sacrificed that at the expense, just to pursue my purpose. During that transition, it wasn't easy. I sacrificed the comfort zone. Sometimes I was without money. It took time for me to settle in America and all of that. But I would say to the glory of God, I'm so happy and I'm so proud of myself that I made that decision, that I did not, stop pursuing the will of God for my life just to be comfortable at that time. I didn't see what was going ahead, but I knew God was leading me. And I knew my God was faithful. He that brought the Israelites by his hand out of Egypt and walked through them in the wilderness and took them to the promised land was with me at that time, walking with me every step of the way. And here I am now. I'm still on the journey. I'm not fulfilled yet. I'm not there yet. It's a journey, but I'm better than how I was. To God be the glory. Can you see? So at that time, there was a situation, there was a demand, there was a choice to be made. Will I worship this comfort zone that I'm experiencing here, or will I pursue the will of God? The management of where I was working at then, they were indirectly demanding. It's either you leave this place to pursue your goal and your vision, or you leave your vision to stay here and work. You have to choose one. But I said, no, I'm not going to bow to the current comforts, to the present comforts. I'm going to pursue the will of God. And here I am today. So that is that. Those are the examples of those who went through or performed holy rebellion in the Bible. Jesus, Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Moses against Pharaoh. Mordecai and Haman, not bowing to Haman. The angel of the Lord in Revelation. David against Goliath and the Philistines. Saul against the Ammonites. There are 7 at least. There are more, probably Gideon too, but at least 7 examples in the Bible. And these are the names we can never forget. Jesus, Daniel, Moses, Mordecai, David, and Saul. Even though they were rebellious, according to today's definition. So it was holy. It was inspired by God.